Hi guys, my name is Amaka and you're welcome to Lizama Stitches. If you're new here, please click on the subscribe button and subscribe, and also turn on the notification bell so that whenever I upload new videos, you'll be notified. In this tutorial, we'll be learning how to make your peplum stand nicely. So let's get started. I've cut my fabric already. I have a detailed tutorial on how to cut and sew a 720 degrees peplum. That tutorial is a detailed tutorial on how to cut and sew a princess dart 720 degrees peplum blouse. It's very detailed and loaded. In that tutorial, you're going to learn how to cut your princess dart bustier. You're also going to learn how to cut your 720 degrees peplum, and you also learn how to couple them together. So I'm going to leave the link in the description box below so that you can check it out later. So let's get started. Now this is my peplum. This is my peplum. My peplum is going to have two layers. Now this is the first layer. The first layer is shorter than the second layer by 3 inches. Now this is the second layer. I'm going to join these two together, and I'll join these two together. Now the same thing I have here. I have the same thing here. Now I'm going to join these two together. This is my lining. I'll join these two together, and I'll join these two together. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to attach interfacing to my fabric, to my main fabric. This is my interfacing. This is my interfacing. Now this is the lightweight interfacing. In my local market, this is called hairstay, in case if you're looking for it in the market. Now I'm going to attach this to the wrong side of my fabric. The same thing I'll do here, I'll also do to the other one, to the second layer of my peplum. I've attached interfacing to my peplum. Now I'm going to split it. I'm going to split it. So I'm going to join these two together. Now this is how I'll do it. I'll hold it. I'm going to join it right side facing right side. I'll take it to my sewing machine and I'll join it this way. And I'll sew it. So when I sew it, I'm going to have, it's going to be long. So this is my peplum. I've joined my peplum. Now the same way I joined this, I also joined the lining the same way, and the second layer. The same thing I did here, I did on the second layer and on the lining. Now this is how I'm going to attach my crinoline. Now this is my lining. The same way I joined this, I also joined my lining. So I'm going to place my lining on my fabric right side facing right side. After that, I'm going to attach my crinoline to my fabric. Now this is my crinoline. This is how I'm going to attach my crinoline. After joining my fabric and my lining right side facing right side, I'm going to attach my crinoline this way. On the edge of my lining and my main fabric, I'm going to come up by 1/4 inch before attaching my crinoline. I'm not going to put it together with my main fabric and I'm not going to put it on this edge where my main fabric and my lining are. Reason being that if you sew your crinoline together with your main fabric and your lining on the same line, you will see that after sewing, when you turn your peplum inside out, you will see that your main fabric will be shorter than the lining. So the best way to do it is to push your crinoline upward a little, maybe by 1/4 inch before sewing. While sewing, try not to stretch your crinoline. If you stretch your crinoline, you're not going to, your peplum is not going to stand. Now another thing I'm going to do, now this is my hemming gum. Now this is hemming gum. I'm going to sew on top of it. I'm going to sew on the crinoline together with the hemming gum. I'll sew everything together. I'll attach this hemming gum to my peplum in such a way that when I finish sewing and I iron my peplum, the heat will activate the gum and the crinoline will stick to my fabric and my fabric will lay nicely. I hope I'm making sense. Okay, so I'm going to do it and show you. Now this is it. I've sewn my peplum. Now this is the seam allowance. This is the seam allowance and this is my crinoline and this is my hemming gum. Now if you can see, I don't know if you can see very well, you will see that I pushed my crinoline upward. Okay, let me turn it this way. Let me turn it this way. I pushed my crinoline upward and I pushed my crinoline upward before sewing. Now this is my seam allowance. This is my hemming gum and I stitched on the edge of the crinoline. Now I'm going to show you the difference between pushing up your crinoline before stitching and not pushing it up. Now let me show you from this one. Now this one here, this one that I pushed the crinoline, this one that I pushed the crinoline upward before sewing, look at what I have. When I turn it, you see that the crinoline didn't take in so much. It didn't take in so much. Are you seeing this? Are you seeing? It didn't take in so much. And the lining and the main fabric, they are still the same length. Now this is it. The lining and the main fabric are still the same length. Let me turn it from here. Are you seeing this? The lining now look at this. The lining and the main fabric, they are still equal. They are still equal. And when you turn from here, you see that it didn't take in so much. The crinoline didn't take in so much. But here, because I didn't push, because I didn't push it up before sewing, now look at what the crinoline took in. Are you seeing my main fabric? Now when you check the main fabric and the lining, they are no longer the same length. They are no longer equal. The lining and the main fabric are no longer equal. Let me turn the other side. They are no longer equal. So that's the difference. It's better to push up your crinoline before sewing. And when you push it up, you sew on the edge of the crinoline. Now another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'll push the seam allowance. I'll push the seam allowance to the lining and I'll top stitch. After that, I'll iron my peplum. I'm going to give this a thorough press. I told you that my peplum has 2 layers. After ironing, I want to show you everything that I'm going to do. After ironing, I'm going to sew here. I'm going to sew here with gather stitches. After sewing, I'm going to also finish the other one. The same thing I did on this one, I'm also going to do the same thing on the other layer of my peplum. Now after that, I'm also going to sew that one. I'm going to bring the 2 together and I'll sew the 2 together. I'm going to join the 2 together. I'll do it and show you. So this is my peplum. I'm done sewing. Now this is it. I've attached the second layer. I've joined the two layers together. Now this is it. This is the first layer and this is the second layer. Now you can see how the peplum is bouncing. Now this is the effect of crinoline. This is what crinoline can do to your peplum. Now you see, I've attached my crinoline. Now I've sewn here. I've sewn the sides. One more thing, before you push your seam allowance on your lining to top stitch, make sure you notch before pushing your seam allowance to your lining to top stitch. Now after attaching your crinoline to your fabric, before top stitching, before pushing your seam allowance on your lining to top stitch, make sure you notch first. Notch, it's very important. Notch before top stitching. I have a detailed tutorial on how to make a 720 degrees peplum, how to cut and sew a 720 degrees peplum. That tutorial is very detailed. That tutorial is actually a tutorial on how to make a padded princess dart peplum blouse. That is 720 degrees peplum. It's very detailed, it's loaded. You need to watch it. I'm going to leave the link in the description box below so that you can check it out later. If you found this tutorial helpful, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Feel free to follow me on Facebook at Lizama Stitches, on Instagram at Lizama Stitches. We've come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.